Question 1A. So I think to make these easier to compare, just go and add the zeros to the ones that have only got the 2 digits after the decimal point. So make this 0.040 and this 0.900, and then really you can just look at the 3-digit number after the decimal point, and it's just easier to see smallest to biggest. So the smallest one is 7.002, then 7.013, then 7.04, then 7.831, and finally 7.9. Part B, write 7% as a decimal. Well, 7% means 7 out of 100, which is 0.07. Part C, write 0.47 as a fraction. Well, that's 47 hundredths. Part D, write 0.63 as a percentage. Well, percentage means out of 100, so multiply this by 100, and that's 63%. Part E, write down a number in the box to make the calculation correct. So 0.003 times what gives us 9? Well, work backwards. Using your calculator, do 9 divided by 0.003, and that gives you 3000. Question 2 says she has 7 meters of ribbon. There are 100 centimeters in a meter, so that's 700 centimeters. Now each decoration needs 45 centimeters, so let's do 700 divided by 45, so that gives us 15.55 ... lengths. Now we need a whole length of 45 to make a decoration, so do be careful that you don't round this up. We can only actually get 15 decorations worth of ribbon out of this, not 16. So final answer 15. Question 3A. Well, we need to shade 3 bits out of 7 here. Now there are 7 columns, so if we just shade 3 of the columns, that's shading 3 out of 7. Now part B, write this as a mixed number. Well, we can get 7 wholes out of this, as 7 3s are 21. 2 bits left over, so that's 3 2/3. Part C, find 2/5 of 60. Well, you could just simply put this into your calculator using the fractions button, 2/5 times 60 to give you the 24. Or alternatively, you could work out 1/5 by dividing by 5. 60 divided by 5 is 12. So 2/5 would be 2 lots of 12, which is 24. Part D. Claude says that a 1/6 is exactly halfway between a quarter and an 1/8. Is she correct? Well, I think the easiest way to argue this is to make them make a quarter and an 1/8 have a common denominator. So let's go for 48. So a quarter is 12 over 48, whereas 1/8 is 6 over 48. Now halfway between 6 over 48 and 12 over 48 would be 9 over 48. However, if we go and convert a 6 into being out of 48, multiplying top and bottom by 8, we can see that that's 8 over 48, which is obviously different to the halfway number of 9 over 48. So is Claude correct? No, she isn't, because a 1/6 is 8 over 48, which is not halfway between a quarter and an 1/8. This halfway is 9 over 48. So she's not correct, and then give a reason. Question 4A. How many cakes did Phoebe bake on Wednesday? Well, we've got 2 3/4 of a cake. Now each cake represents 8. 3/4 of 8 is 6. So we've got an 8, an 8 and a 6. Add those together, we get 22 cakes on a Wednesday. Part B. Phoebe baked more cakes on Thursday than on Monday. How many more? Well, on Thursday she baked 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus a quarter of a cake. A quarter of 8 is 2, so that's 34. On Monday she baked 3/8 of 24 cakes, so that's 10 more. And then thirdly, part C, Phoebe baked 20 cakes on Friday. Show this information on the pictogram. Well, that's going to be a whole cake for 8, another whole cake for 8, then half a cake for 4, because 8 at 8 at 4 is 20. So a whole and half a cake. Question 5a, write these numbers in order of size. So -6, -5, -4, 8 and 10. Part B, work out the difference between the midnight temperature in Orlando, which is 10, and Boston, which is -5. Maybe a little number line just to help you gather your thoughts on this. What's the difference between -5 and 10? Well, you can see it takes us 5 degrees to get up to 0, and then a further 10, so that's 15 degrees. Alternatively, you could have done 10 minus -5, which is 10 plus 5, which is 15. Now, part C, work out the temperature that is exactly halfway between 8 and -6. So again, you could go and use a number line to help you do this. You could go and see that there's 14 between 8 and -6, so we need to go 7 along from that. 7 up from -6 is +1. Alternatively, you could have just worked out the average of these two numbers. So 8 add -6 is +2. Divide this by 2 to give us the +1. Part D, on the 1st of January, the midnight temperature in Minneapolis was 10 degrees lower than the midnight temperature in Philadelphia. So 10 degrees lower than -4 is -14. -4, take away another 10, takes us to -14. Question 6, Part A, complete the table. So there must be 6 in here, because 25 add 6 gives us our 31. Once we've got that, we could go and work out, for example, the 37 over here. 80 take away 43 gives us the 37. Then we could go and, well, just fill in all the gaps really. So the numbers, so just work your way along, filling in the gaps, either adding or subtracting, and then just double check it all works. 25 at 6 is 31, 5 at 4 is 9, 7 at 33 is 40, and then adding horizontally, 25 at 5 at 7 is 37, 6, 4 and 33 is 43, 31, 9 and 40 is 80. Now part B, write down the probability that this student is a girl if you pick a student at random. Well, we've got 43 girls out of a total of 80 students, 43 out of 80. Now part C, you've got to be careful here. One of the girls is picked at random, so we're picking from the total number of girls, which is 43. So our denominator, our bottom number, is going to be 43. That's who we are choosing from. Now, out of these 43, what's the probability they like chemistry best? Well, the girls who like chemistry best is 4. So it's 4 out of the 43 girls. Question 7a. Work out the output when the input is 8. So we're putting 8 into this number machine. So we take our 8 and we divide it by 2, giving us 4. We then add 10 to this, giving us 14. Now for part B, we've got to work the other way. We've got to work out the input when we're given that the output is 120. So you've got to do the opposite operations in the opposite order. So you start off by taking your 120, and rather than adding 10, you subtract 10, giving you 110. And then finally, rather than dividing by 2, you multiply by 2, giving you 220. And of course you can check this answer. If you go and pop this into the machine, does it give you an output of 120? Well, let's check. Our 220 divided by 2 is 110. Add our 10, we do indeed get our 120. Question 8. A train journey started at 17:50 and finished at 2:25 the next day. How long did the train journey take? Well, I like to sort of break this down into bits just so I don't make a mistake. So 17:50 up to 18 is going to be 10 minutes. So that's a nice round hour. Now 1800 hours through to 2 o'clock in the morning is going to be 8 hours. And then going from 2 o'clock in the morning to 2:25 is going to be a further 25 minutes. So overall that gives me 8 hours and 35 minutes. You can do it any way you like, but just make sure you can get 8 hours 35 minutes. Question 9. So let's first of all see how much money we spent before the croissants. So that's 2 cups of coffee at £2.10 each, which is £4.20, and 2 cups of tea at £1.80 each, which is £3.60. So €7.80 is our 2 cups of coffee and our 2 cups of tea. Now let's just move on to the this money bit. So Pierre paid with a €20 note and got £8.75 change. So that means that €11.25 was the amount spent in total. Now we know that £11.25 was the amount spent in total, of which £7.80 was spent on 2 coffees and 2 teas. So if we subtract £7.80 from the £11.25, giving us £3.45, that's how much the 3 croissants must have cost. So if the 3 croissants cost £3.45 together, each of the croissants is going to be £3.45 divided by 3, which is €1.15. Question 10. So we've been asked in the space below to make an accurate drawing of this triangle. Now the first thing we can see is this angle over here at A has got to be 55 degrees. So get out your protractor and just go and measure an angle of 55 degrees here, and just lightly just do a little mark, which I've done there in blue, of where 55 degrees is, and then using a ruler just lightly pop in that line there in red, which is my construction line, which is the line at 55 degrees. Now this line needs to be 7 centimeters long, so just get out your ruler and measure 7 centimeters along there, just firming that up on top of the construction line. And then finally, the last thing we do, really just treat the line from C to B as your balancing item. So just where your purple line finishes, pop your ruler there, pop your ruler at B, and draw in that final length there as the third thing you do. So step 1, get the angle established. Step 2, 7 centimeters along that line, so we've got a 55 degree angle. And then thirdly, the green line is really your balancing item. Question 11a. So factorising means put the brackets in. Highest common factor of both terms is x, so x goes outside the brackets. Open your bracket up. X times what gives you 3x squared? Well, that's 3x. Get the sign right, that's a minus. X times what gives you x? Well, that's just 1. And close your bracket and just check your answer. X times 3x gives you 3x squared. X times minus 1 is minus x. Part B, expand. This means get rid of the brackets, so do your 2 clause. 4 multiplied by 2y is 8y. 4 times plus 3 is plus 12. Now part C, work out the value of C when A is minus 3 and D is equal 6. Now you can put this straight into your calculator, but just put your numbers in brackets. So 5 lots of minus 3, then we add on 4 lots of 6. That will take you straight through to a final answer of 9. But if you want to break it down as in your workings, that's 5 times minus 3 is minus 15. Add the 24, giving you 9. Now again, part D can be put straight into your calculator, but you've got to be doubly careful to put your t value of minus 4 in a bracket, because you do need the minus 4 to be protected. Minus 4 needs to be in a bracket so that when you square it, you get plus 16. If you did not put the minus 4 in a bracket, it will give you minus 16, which is wrong. So popping it straight into your calculator like that will take you straight to the final correct answer. But again, if you want to break it down to have some more detailed workings, minus 4 squared is 16, 3 lots of 16 is 48, 7 times minus 4 is minus 28, 48 minus 28 is your 20. Question 12. So we're going to start off by working out the area of the floor. So break down this compound shape into 2 simpler shapes of by putting a dotted line down there. That gives us a rectangle over here, which is 3 by 9. And if we put the dotted line down here, given that total length was 8, of which that part of the length is 3, that must be 5. So we've actually got a square here, which is 5 by 5. So the 2 separate areas, the rectangle is 3 9s are 27, the square is 5 5s are 25. So total floor area, add the 2 together, we get 52 meters squared. Now we're told that each tin has enough polish to cover 14 meters squared, so 52 divided by 14 means we need 3.71 ... tins. So we can't just buy parts of a tin, so we've got to buy 4 tins of polish. Each tin costs us €9.59. 4 lots of 9.59 is 38.36 euros. Question 13a. So we need to take all our x's to the one side, and it's easier to take them to the side with the greater of number of x's to start with, which on this occasion is the left. So let's take away 1x from both sides, giving us 6x plus 3 equals minus 18. So I've now got all my x's on my left. I want to get all my normal numbers onto the right. So I want to undo this plus 3 by subtracting 3 from both sides, giving me 6x equals minus 21. Now to undo this timesing by 6, we're going to divide by 6. So x equals minus 21 over 6. Now that's fine as a final answer, but if you want, you could have put down minus 3.5. Now for part B, we've got to make w the subject. Well, that means we go from having t equaling stuff to w equaling stuff. So we need to undo everything on the right to just leave w on its own. And you start off by addressing the term not including the w. So we want to start off by undoing this plus 3 by subtracting 3 from both sides. So t minus 3 equals 7w. Now we need to undo this multiplying by 7 by dividing both sides by 7. Now on the left, make this t minus 3 all over 7 to make it clear that both components are being divided by the 7. So t minus 3 all over 7 equals w. Writing it the other way around, w equals t minus 3 over 7. Now part C, write down a formula for t in terms of p and r. Well, we're buying p pencils, each of which costs $2. So the total cost on pencils is going to be 2 lots of p. So 2 times p, and the total cost of the rulers, given they're $3 each, is going to be 3 times r. So the total cost altogether, t equals 2p plus 3r. Question 14. So I've started off by focusing on this angle up here, this angle EBC, and that's 75 degrees because how opposite angles are equal. So remember, each time you get an angle, you need to give a reason behind how you got it. So vertically opposite angles are equal. Next, I'm focusing on this angle here, this angle GEC or BEC if you like. Now, because angles on a straight line add up to 180, that's going to be 180 take away 123, which is 57. So angle BEC equals 57 degrees. Angles on a straight line total 180. Now, once I've got these two angles, then I can work out what y is quite easily, because angles in this triangle add up to 180. So y is 180 take away 75 take away 57, which is 48. And then finally, I can now work out x, again because angles on a straight line total 180. So x is 180 take away y, which is 48, giving us 132 degrees. But do include those 4 reasons, because you've worked out 4 things. Worked out that, 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 and that. Question 15, part A. Write down the modal class. Now, modal means most, so which frequency happened most often? Something happened 27 times. What happened 27 times? That the cars were in the airport car park for between 12 and 16 days. So we want the modal class, so you copy this down exactly, this bit here. Not the 27, this bit on the left. Now part B, work out an estimate for the mean number of days. Now, we don't know how long these 16 cars were parked in the car park for. All we know is it's between 0 and 4 days. So we have to take an estimate. Let's just assume they stayed in the car park for the average of 0 and 4, so the midpoint. So what's halfway between 0 and 4? That's 2. So we're going to assume these 16 cars stayed for 2 days, these 18 cars stayed for the midpoint of 4 and 8, which is 6 days, and so on. So we need our column of midpoints, and then we cross multiply. We're going to now just assume 16 cars for 2 days, so that's 32 days. 18 cars stayed for 6 days, so that's 108 days. So cross multiply, giving us these subtotals, which we can then add up to get 1068 days. Now we will need an estimate for the mean, so we now divide this. Now do be careful, you've got to divide this by the number of cars, which is 100. Don't fall into the trap of dividing by the number of rows, which is 5. So 1068 divided by 100 is 10.68. Now please do not round this. I know it says work out an estimate, but the estimate is because we've had to just make this assumption about the number of days the car was in the car park. Okay, that's where the estimating comes into play. It does not mean you are allowed to round your final answer. You can't. Question 16. Well, we've got to work out how much greater the volume of brick A is than brick B. So obviously we're going to have to work out the volume of both of these bricks. So starting off with this first one, brick A. Now this is the prism, where you've got a constant cross section throughout. How do you work out the area of a prism? Well, you work out the area of the cross section, the n bit, and you multiply this by how deep it is. Now, how do you work out an area of a triangle? It's half times base times height. So half times 6 times 6. Then multiply this by how deep it is, 5. So half times 6 times 6 times 5, which is 90. Now, brick B is also a prism. It's got a constant cross section of half a circle. How do you work out the area of a whole circle? Well, that would be pi r squared. But we've got half a circle as the cross section. So it's half of pi r squared, and then again multiply this by how deep the brick is. So half times pi times the radius, well the radius of this circle will be 3. So half times pi times 3 squared times 5, which is 70.685 ... So how much greater is brick A than brick B? Well, we do 90, take away 70.685 ... giving us 19.314 ... which to one decimal place is 19.3 centimeters cubed. Question 17. So part A, we're being asked to find an nth expression for this sequence. So just see how much we're going up in, and we can see we're consistently going up in 6s. So that's the first term in our expression is 6n. Had we been going up in 5s, we would have said 5n. Now the adjustment we have to make is what we call this 0th term. Imagine another number was going to barge to the front of the queue, but following the sequence, what number would come to the head of the queue? Now you can see as we go from right to left, we're counting down 6 each time, so we have to take 6 away from 10, taking us to plus 4. So our nth term expression is 6n plus 4. Now part B, we've got another sequence here, sequence T, which is given by this. There are numbers that are terms in both the sequences S and the sequence T. Find one of these numbers. So obviously we've got these numbers here from sequence S. Well, let's go and work out the first few numbers in sequence T. Now remember, n is the position it comes in the sequence. So the first term in sequence T will be when n equals 1. So substitute 1 into the expression. 1 squared is 1, take away 3 is minus 2. Well, that's not in sequence S. So let's move on to the second term in the sequence when n is 2. 2 2's are 4, 4 take away 3 is 1. Nope, that won't do. N is 3, so we go 3 squared, take away 3, which is 6. That's not in sequence S. N equals 4, so 4 squared, take away 3 is 13. Nope, still not one we want. But finally, the fifth term in the sequence, 5 squared, take away 3 is 22. Now 22 is in both sequences, so that is a number in both sequences. By the way, 46 would be as well, but it seems odd to have got to that before having got to the 22. But 46 would be fine as the final answer, but 22 is probably the first one you got to. Question 18. So on Saturday, Jacob walked 10,800 steps. On Sunday, he walked 7% more. Now, whilst you could go and work out 10% and then 1% or 5% and all of this and just sort of use that building blocks method, it's so much quicker if you can just translate this knowledge into a multiplier. If you're going to increase it by 7%, then the number of steps you're going to do, you multiply by 1.07. Had he walked 6% more steps, then 1.06 and so on. So just pop into your calculator 10,800 times 1.07 to give you 11,556. Question 19a. List the members that are in set A, the numbers that are in set A. So that's all the numbers in the A circle. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 and 12. Now part B, list the numbers that are in set A intersection B. That means that are in both A and in B. So where circle A and circle B overlap. So that's the 8, the 10 and the 12. Now part C, list the members that are in set A union B, not A union B. So A union B dash. So this means you go, first of all, go and work out what will be A union B, and then reject all of those numbers and take all the other numbers. So that that dash means the complement of A union B. It means what's not A union B. Now A union B means they're in A or B or both. So A or B or both are all those numbers in the two circles. Now we want the numbers that aren't in those, so that's numbers 1, 3 and 5. Now part D, one of the numbers in the Venn diagram is chosen at random. Find the probability that this number is in set A union B. Now as we said earlier on, A union B are all these numbers that are in A or B or both. Now how many numbers are there that are in A or B or both? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 numbers are A union B, but there are 12 numbers in total. So if we're picking a number at random, what's the chances it's an A union B? It's 9 out of 12, which we just leave as a fraction. Or if you wanted to simplify it, you could have put 3/4, but you didn't have to. 9 over 12 is fine. Question 20 part A, write down the upper bound of the length of the line. Now given this is correct to 1 decimal place, we need to go up or down by 0.05. So what's the very biggest number that we would round down to 12.3? Well, it's just a fraction under 12.35. And 12.35 we would actually round up. But the way it works with bounds, we like the symmetry with the lower bound, which we'll come on to in a minute. And because the true answer would be 12.349 recurring, they allow us to say 12.35. In fact, they would prefer us to do this. So 12.35, just a fraction below that, we would round down to 12.3 rather than up to 12.4. I mean, you could put 12.349 recurring, but you've really got to be ever so careful to make sure you put a dot on top of that 9. So I just wouldn't risk it. Just go to 12.35. Now the lower bound is more sort of satisfying because this sort of follows all the conventions we normally follow. What's the smallest number where we would still round up to 12.3 to 1 decimal place? Well, that would be 12.25, because 12.25 would round up to 12.3, correct to 1 decimal place. But as I said before, they like us to give our answers with this symmetry, that this answer here is 0.05 below 12.3, so they want this number to be 0.05 above 12.3. Question 21. Now, because the interest rate is 1.5%, the multiplier we're going to use is 1.015. So this is the tricky bit, okay? Had it been 2%, we'd have gone for 1.02, 3%, 1.03, but 1.5%, 1.015. Don't forget that 0. If you've put 1.15, you've assumed it said 15%, which it isn't. Now, once you've got the multiplier, this is quite straightforward to get to our final answer. You take the initial investment, which is the 6,000, and you multiply it by the multiplier to the power of the number of years you're receiving the interest. So 4 years to the power of 4. So pop this into your calculator and you get 6,000 times 1.015 to the power of 4 gives us the total money after the 4 years of 6368.18. Now the question asks us just for the interest, that's the extra bit we get, so you have to subtract your initial 6,000 from this, giving you 368.18 interest. Now you're asked to give your answer correct to the nearest dirham, so that's 368. Question 22. Now we're being asked to work out the value of y, so the length of y. Now the problem we've got here is, of course, that we've got this diagonal line here, making it difficult to go and judge how long this is and this is. So what we want to do, if we just drop down a perpendicular here, we can go and create this little triangle on the end. Now using trigonometry, we can go and work out the length of x, and once we know x, then the y, the length all the way along, is going to be 37 plus this little bit on the end. So let's focus on this little triangle here. So what's the height of my triangle? Well, my triangle is 15 along. What's this little acute angle here? Well, given that this angle here inside the rectangle is 90, this angle here is going to be the rest round to 125. So 125 take away 90, which is 35 degrees. And I want to work out this length here, So which ratio do I use? Well, I need to work out my opposite side. I know my adjacent, so that's going to be tan. So tan 35 equals my opposite side of x divided by my adjacent side of 15. Multiplying both sides by 15, I get x being 15 times tan 35. Popping that into my calculator, I get a length of x being 10.503 ... So that's this little length here. If I then go and add that on to 37, which is obviously the same length as that, that gives me a final answer for y of 47.503 ... So to one decimal place, that's 47.5. Question 23. Now I think this is quite tricky. So let's start off by focusing on this fact. The pentagon has exactly one line of symmetry, so which is down here. So popping this line down here, I'm now going to focus on this shape over here, A, E, D, and then down the pink line. Now this must be 90 degrees here, and this angle up here must be 42, being half the 84, as we've split that angle. Now if I can go and work out what y is, then I'm well on my way to working out what x is. So what do I know about y? Well, I know that given that this pink shape here is a 1, 2, 3, 4-sided shape, all these angles inside must add up to 360. So y, this little angle here, must be 360, take away 42, take away 112, take away 19. So y here, this internal angle here, is 116 degrees. Now let's go and focus on this exterior, octagon, the outside shape. Now that's a regular shape. I'm told it's regular. Now the exterior angles of regular shapes always add up to 360 degrees. Now given it's got 8 sides, each of the exterior angles, so for example if I was to extend that line through F, it would be this little exterior angle here, is going to be 360 divided by 8, which is 45. Because an interior angle plus an exterior angle equals 180, each angle on the inside of this octagon is going to be 180 take away 45, which is 135. Now that includes this angle here. That's an interior angle of the octagon. Now that whole angle there comprises x plus y. So x plus y is 135. I've just worked out earlier on here in pink that y was 116. So x must be 135, take away the 116, which is 19 degrees. Question 24. So let's just go and think about the ratio here. Carlos to Flavia to Tazia. Now we're told that the amount Flavia got is 65% of the amount of money Carlos got, and then Tazia got is 22% more than the amount of money Carlos got. So both of these percentages are compared to Carlos. So let's just go and say that Carlos had 100 to start with. Now Flavia got 65% of this. 65% of 100 would be 65. And Tazia got 22% more. So that's going to be a 1.22 multiplier on the Carlos's amount. So Tazia got £122. Okay, so this is all compared. This is just giving us a ratio, assuming Carlos had 100% to start with. So Flavia got 65% of the £100. Tazia got 22% more. So that gives us a ratio we can work with. Adding these three together, we get a total of 287 for our ratio. Now we're told that they shared £861 between them. So how do I move from our ratio up to the total amount of money involved? Well, if you do 861 divided by 287 on your calculator, you can see that this is 3 times the amount. So to move from our ratio to the actual amount of money they got, I need to multiply these by 3. Now I've got to work out how much money Carlos got, so that's 100 times 3, which is £300. Question 25. Now it says factorise fully, so this is going to mean that we're going to be needing to take out more than one component outside the bracket. So let's start off by taking out the highest common factor of 12 and 16. Well, that's 4. Highest common factor of d squared and d squared is d squared. And highest common factor of e and e squared is e. So I need to take all of that outside my bracket, open up my bracket, and then say to myself, 4d squared e times what gives me 12d squared e? Well, I just need the 3 there, because 4d squared e times 3 is 12d squared e. Then get the sign right, it's a plus, and then say to yourself 4d squared e times what gives you 16d squared e squared. Well, I need another 4, so I get my 4 times 4 is 16. I've already got my d squared, but I need e squared. I've presently only got an e, so I need another e in there. And then just double check. So the first bracket, the first clause gives us 12d squared e. Our second clause gives us 16d squared e squared, and that's what I wanted. Now part B, you've just got to work your way along dividing the normal numbers, dividing the k's, and dividing the m's. So let's start off with 15 divided by 5, which is 3. Now k to the power of 4 divided by k, which is k to the power of 1. Remember, when we're dividing, we subtract the powers. 4 take away 1 is 3, so k cubed. And then finally on the m's, m cubed divided by m squared, we subtract the powers. 3 take away 2 is 1, so it's m to the power of 1, which is of course m.